Thanks for watching Afternoon Live. Okay, most parents know that dreaded feeling of standing in a public place watching your child have a meltdown. Here to help us avoid those stressful moments in the future, we welcome back parenting coach Tia Slightham. Great to see you, Tia.
Great to see you too, Hannah.
So let's talk about, there's a couple things happening here. There's actually a difference between a tantrum and a meltdown, and how do we kind of identify what's happening?
Yeah, oftentimes we don't know as parents that there are two types of outbursts, tantrums and meltdowns. And without understanding the difference between the two and how to distinguish between the two, we often go to our kids trying to support them or stop the tantrum or meltdown. And without knowing the difference, we often make it worse.
I have so totally been there because on the outside they sort of present the same, but there's different causal factors going in.
Yeah, so we want to look at the symptoms and the root cause. So when we look at the symptoms of tantrums and meltdowns, this is where things get really tricky. They actually present exactly the same. So it can be for younger kids, stomping their feet, slamming their head on the ground, crying, screaming, refusing to get up. For older kids, it might be back talking, slamming doors, calling each other names, being rude or disrespectful. But whether your child, younger or older, are having a tantrum or meltdown, we see these similar behaviors. So we think to ourselves they're the same. But ultimately, they stem from two totally different root causes. And once we learn to understand this, we can learn to avoid those behaviors more easily.
So we have to kind of trust ourselves and look for the signs as parents of what's really going on, so then you can have the more appropriate response to actually help your kid.
Absolutely. And when we look at those root causes so that you can start to identify those and become more equipped to identify those more easily, whether you're in public or at home, we want to really think about it in two different ways. So when we look at a tantrum, the root cause is a bit more self-explanatory, where our kids are upset and mad and frustrated because we said they could only have one cookie instead of two, we needed to leave the park, or they needed to get off their device. They're unhappy with the situation and they want to let us know just how mad they are in hopes that maybe we might give in and they can have what we want. In terms of meltdown root causes, it's totally different. We want to think about a pitcher of water that's filled to the top and we just keep filling it and filling it and filling it, and the water is coming out the top. This is how your kids feel when they're having a meltdown. They're emotionally and physically overwhelmed by what's happening in their life, whatever particular situation. It might be that they're overtired, they're overhungry, they're overstimulated, they're having some anxiety, concern, or worry. And we need to help identify that so that we can support our kids through those emotions. And if we haven't identified it, we could be coming to them in a way that's making them feel less supported.
Yeah, so once you've kind of gotten the lay of the land, you think you know what's happening with your kid, what are the best ways to respond for either the tantrum or the meltdown?
Yeah, so for tantrums, we're going to use a three-step tantrum taming strategy. I talked about this as validate, choice, space. So VCS for short. So what we do is we want to validate our kids so they feel seen and heard and understood, that their feelings are okay. We want to offer choice so that we give them some control and power over the situation, but yet still holding limits as a parent. And then we want to offer space because all feelings and emotions are okay. We don't want to try and squash our child from having feelings, but we also don't want to stick around in a tantrum and give them an audience, because this is where kids will cry louder, harder, and longer. So learning to identify that it's truly a tantrum will give you the comfort and confidence to walk away, which will actually start to minimize those big emotions. So it might look something like your child wanting ice cream for breakfast, and that might be a hard no for you. So when you use the validate, choice, space, they start to get upset, and you can say something like, I hear you would like ice cream. We've validated. Unfortunately, it's not available now, but you could choose to have some after lunch or dinner, totally your choice. We're giving them a boundary with some limits and some parameters. And then if it continues to escalate, you don't need to stay for the show. You didn't buy a ticket. You can calmly walk away. I'm going to walk away for a minute. When you're ready, you let me know, and I'm totally happy to help you. So we're not getting angry, frustrated, mad. We're not picking up our end of the rope. We're still giving them their feelings, but we're also going to give space because we don't need to stick around.
Yeah, that's a great way to calmly deal with that intense moment sometimes. But what about in the meltdown case where your kid really is just overwhelmed? How do you kind of catch them in that moment?
Here's where you want to really do some mental checking as a parent. Did my kids get enough quality quantity sleep? Are they over hungry? Have I had them try on too many clothes to see if they still fit and they just can't take it anymore? Is your child feeling overwhelmed in the moment? And when you can recognize that, you need to just more or less put on your superhero cape and say, okay, I need to support them in this moment. What can I do next time to avoid being overtired or over hungry, or to break things down into more manageable pieces for my child to support them through transitions or areas where they're struggling? And then really offer hugs, maybe redirect, take them out of the space if they're feeling overwhelmed by whatever that situation is, and just know that it's your job to support them through those emotions, not try and stop those emotions, and then knowing next time what you can do as a parent to help maybe avoid that next time, to avoid that pitcher overfilling too much.
Yeah. Do you have any simple kind of go-to things that can work sometimes when you're in that dreaded? I just always think about the grocery store. You're in the middle of the aisle. Your cart is full. You've got to go. How do you kind of find calm in those moments of chaos and stay in control as the parent?
So you could use some simple language in that scenario. So in that scenario, if you haven't prepared in advance, which I would recommend would be the best case scenario, is if you know your child is going to beg for a treat or candy or something in the grocery store, to let them know in advance. Today's unfortunately not a day for a treat or a toy, but we will do that Friday, and there's a sticker on your calendar that shows you that, but that's when we're going to do that. So really advanced teaching and training. But if you haven't done that and you're in the moment and your kids are really starting to escalate, using the language either or is going to be really helpful. So thinking about what motivates your child. Maybe they don't want to go to bed early, maybe they really want to have that evening show or iPad time, and then saying either we take some deep breaths and manage ourselves, or you're telling me that you're too tired to stay up this evening, or you're too tired for your show, and no trouble, we can go to bed earlier. Again, your choice. So we're always putting everything back on our kids so that they learn to make decisions that work really well for them or not so well. And that's how we teach those life lessons.
Yeah, that's a great way to frame it to help them have some participation in the activity. Thank you so much, Tia. It was great to see you.
You as well.
We'll have more information on our website at katu.com.